All right, Mr. Ahmed here for 9.5. Goal for today is to use the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula is another tool we can use to solve quadratics. And before we hop into the formula, we're just going to review. Keep in mind, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the coefficient of x squared. So whatever number's in front of the x squared, if there's nothing there, we assume it's a 1. The coefficient of x is b, so that would be like a 5 in this case. And the constant, just the number, in this case is 6. That is our c value. So in order to use the quadratic formula, we're going to have to identify a, b, and c. The quadratic formula needs to be memorized. It is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And that goes to a little catchy song called Pop Goes the Weasel. So if you want to try and hum it along and memorize it using that, it goes something like this. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's kind of the tune I use to keep it memorized. I'll probably do that in class too, but that's just one other way that you can memorize this formula to use it. So in order to use the quadratic formula, first step, the equation has to say equals 0. After that, we'll identify a, b, and c, and then we will substitute those into the quadratic formula and simplify. So first example, 3x squared plus 5x plus 1. A is equal to 3, b is equal to 5, and c is equal to 1. We have identified those. So I'm going to write the formula down. Writing this down the first 5 or 6 times that you use it will help you memorize it. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, all that's under it, divided by 2a. So now when I plug this in, we have to use parentheses. So I have a negative, 5 goes in for b, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 1. All divided by 2 times 3, 2a. All right, now we got to simplify this. In order to simplify, we have to use order of operations. So I have to simplify inside the radical first. This negative 5 is going to stay negative, plus or minus the square root of 5 squared is 25, minus 4 times 3 times 1. We have to multiply those. 4 times 3 is 12. Divided by 2 times 3 is 6. Now we can simplify that one step further, and we get negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 12, which is 13, over 6. And we would leave it right there. That is the exact form. Now, in order to get some decimal approximations, you can type that into your calculator. And when you type it in, you're going to have to be a little bit careful here. So I'm going to type this in so you can kind of see how I'd get some decimals. I'd have negative 5 plus the square root of 13. I'll press enter. Okay. Notice it switched it around with this math type. 13 minus 5, or sorry, the square root of 13 minus 5, because 5 is negative. Then I have to divide that by 6. And there it is in exact form. For me to convert that to a decimal, I use the little arrows, and I get negative 0.23. So that's one of the solutions. And the other one, we just have to do that with a plus sign. Or did I do a plus sign on that one? I don't remember. I did a plus. Now I have to do minus. So negative 5 minus the square root of 13, enter, divided by 6, enter, and convert it. We get negative 1.43. So that is both the exact answer and the decimal approximation. So make sure you read the instructions on whether it says to use the exact form if you're finding a rounded decimal, okay? So on to the next one. First step, have to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. I want the x squared to be positive. So I have x squared minus 8x minus 12 equals 0. And now we'll identify a, b, and c. A is equal to 1. B is equal to negative 8, and C is equal to negative 12. Standard form. Quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That's the quadratic formula. Now we got to plug them in. So in this case, I have a negative parentheses negative 8. So we're going to take a negative times a negative, which will change it to a positive, plus or minus the square root of, in parentheses, negative 8 squared. That's going to be a positive. That parentheses is key. You have to put it in parentheses. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 12 divided by 2 times a, which is 1. Now we will simplify it down. So negative times a negative is a positive 8, plus or minus the square root. Negative 8 squared is 64, minus, forgot a parentheses. 4 times 1 times negative 12. So I have a 4 times negative 12, which is negative 48. So minus negative 48 will change to a plus. Okay? Multiplied by a negative, it was a minus sign. Minus a negative will change to a plus. All divided by 2. All right, simplify this one step forward. 8 plus or minus, we have to do 64 plus 48 is 112 divided by 2. All right, so I would say that's our exact form. We could leave it there. We could simplify this radical by finding its perfect square factors. And the perfect square factor that goes into 112 is 16. So I am going to simplify this a little bit further. Rewriting down here, we have 8 plus or minus the square root of 16 times the square root of 7. 16 times 7 is 112 divided by 2. Then we can change that a little bit further because this is going to turn to a 4. So I have 8 plus or minus 4 times the square root of 7 divided by 2. I could even go one step further than this. 8 divided by 2 works, and so does 4 divided by 2. So I could change it to 4 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 7. And that would be our solution because I divided by 2 for both terms. And that is what x is equal to. I will leave it right there. If you want to get the decimal, you can plug it into your calculator. There are 2 U tries. Give them a shot. All right, hopefully you had some success. The first one's already equal to 0. A is equal to 1. B is equal to what? Well, there wasn't 1 there, so we have to add an x. So probably hit a bad spot to tell you to push pause because that needed to be a negative 5x. So B is negative 5 and C is negative 13. Forgot the x. That was a boo-boo. Sorry about that. Okay, and then from there we can now solve. So x is equal to negative parentheses negative 5. I didn't write it this time. I'm looking at it right there. Plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 13. All divided by 2 times 1. We got that. Negative times a negative is going to change to a positive 5. Plus or minus square root 25 minus, have to do 4 times 1 times negative 13. And 4 times negative 13 is negative 52. So minus negative 52. That will change to a plus, all divided by 2. Okay? So 25 plus 52. Now from here, 25 plus 52, we have to combine that. It's 77. So I have 5 plus or minus the square root of 77 divided by 2. Perfect square factors that go into 77. There are none, so this is already in exact form. We have our solutions. You could type it in to get your decimals. All right, next one. This one's not equal to 0, so I have to add 15 to both sides first. Then I have x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. We can identify A. A is 1. B is 8. C is 15. Now we plug it into the quadratic formula. X equals negative parentheses 8 plus or minus square root 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, 15, divided by 2 times 1. Okay? Simplifying it down. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 minus 4 times 15 is 60 divided by 2. 64 minus 60, we have negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 4 divided by 2. Now I can take the square root of 4. That's 2, so I have negative 8 plus or minus 2 over 2. Now I can find my two solutions. Negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. So that would be negative 6 divided by 2. X is equal to negative 3. Then we have to do negative 8 minus 2, which is negative 10. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. So those are our two solutions. And that's always equal to x. All right, that's it for today. Have a good one.